Hello and welcome to Outside In. By the way, anybody who doesn't like the rambling, I do this because I want to help people. I want to help somebody who's went through what I just went through, to let you know that you're not alone, even though you feel it, because I did. Everybody that I called, no one wanted to help me. I was out in the middle of nowhere, I wasn't familiar with where I was at, so I just didn't know what to do. For the past several weeks, I've been having crazy problems with my truck again. I finally found that the issue that I was having was I found a blown fuse. And this is a 2007 Ford Expedition, and it is fuse number 37 underneath the hood. And according to the manual, that fuse is the transmission B plus fuse. So whenever that fuse blows, you will not be able to start your vehicle. The wrench light will come on, the traction light will also come on if you're having, I think it's a transmission issue. Now, I don't know if other fuses will do it with the transmission issue, but I do know that number 37, when it blows, once you turn your vehicle off, you will not start it again because it won't start unless you replace that fuse. I went on a trip and the truck ran great for about an hour and the fuse blew again. I was like, okay, maybe I just put a couple bad fuses in it. So I stuck another fuse in it and it started right up and I kept on going. And then it was the next day that I was driving down the road and it blew again. Okay, then there really must be something going on and I need to figure out what's happening. So I assumed, obviously, that there must be a short somewhere. I was crawling underneath the truck, I was looking at the wires, I was trying to find a bad spot, I couldn't find anything, jiggling wires, replacing fuses, still kept blowing fuses. I finally got it running again and I went on a trip, a small trip, came back and no issue. So I was like, okay, well then maybe I'm okay now. I got a call that I needed to go to Harrisburg, Virginia, so I headed down that way. Well, I got about maybe 10 miles away from the house. There was a rough spot in the road. And then I looked down when I stopped at the stop sign, and guess what? My wrench light and my traction control light was on again. I took off. It was stuck in second gear, so I was running at like 40 miles an hour, and then I finally got to a gas station where I could pull in and pull the fuse and then put a new one in it so I could keep going. Up to this point, I was good with just pulling the bad fuse out, putting a new one in, and keep going until I can figure out what's going on. So I keep going. I get down to Interstate 81, and I get down probably around exit 132. I was going through some rough road in the construction. This time the check engine light, the wrench light, and the traction control light all came on. The plus side for the fuse blowing while you're at highway speeds is that then it would be stuck in either third or fourth gear. So at least I could still go 70 to keep up with traffic. It was just when I came to a stop, it would start off in third or fourth gear. So it was real slow taking off, and I hated doing that, because I know that is not good for the transmission. And I decide, wait a minute, you know what, maybe I shouldn't push this. Maybe I should just pull over, pull that fuse, put a new one in, and keep going. I pulled off of the exit. There was a truck stop there, and when I got off of the exit, I pulled off to a little gravel pull-off. I got out of the truck, I lifted the hood, and I pulled the 15 amp fuse out, and I put a new 15 amp fuse in it. But guess what? As soon as I put the fuse in, it blew. So I thought that maybe what's happened now is that this has blown so many times that wherever it's short, it's finally welded itself to the metal or whatever it's touching, and now it's just a complete, total dead short. I was like, well, maybe it was just a bad fuse. So I went and got another fuse out of the truck, put that one in, blew right away. And I did it a third time, blew right away. I crawl up underneath the truck in the gravel, and I'm pulling on wires, I'm looking at wires, I got my flashlight under there trying to find any wire that's showing bare wire, but I couldn't find anything. I went up to the front of the truck underneath, and I'm looking at wires and I'm pulling on wires, but I don't see any wires that are bare. Nothing shorting at all. So I'm like, what in the world is going on? Where is this? I was seeing online that possibly solenoids that go bad inside the transmission could cause shorts. And I was like, no, man, what if it is that? Maybe the transmission is dying. It's 416,000 miles on it, and as far as I know, it's original transmission. I ran over across the street to the truck stop. I asked them if they had a garage. They said they did not. So they gave me a number to a local guy that comes to that truck stop to help people. So I called him, and he did not want to come out to help me. He said it's a short. Who knows where it could be? So he said, I just don't have the time to do anything like that. So I was just stranded, and I was out in the middle of nowhere, and he didn't want to help me. So he gave me a number for another garage. So I called another garage, and they basically said the same thing. They wasn't going to come out to me to see if they could find a short, because it was just going to be way too involved, and they didn't want to be bothered. So I called it, they gave me a number for another garage. I called another garage. So I went through this, I don't know how many times. I called, 4 or 5 different garages. And one of the garages, his suggestion to me, because he didn't want to come out there to me, he just suggested that I use a bigger fuse. Right. I mean, I was like, what? Are you serious? He said, well, yeah. He said, if you use a bigger fuse, what'll happen is if you put that in there, you'll see smoke, and then you'll know where the short is. And I'm like, no, duh. But also, I could burn my truck to the ground and burn every wire out of the truck. If you're listening to me right now, don't ever try that. If you have a 15 that's blowing all the time, don't try to put a 20 or a 25 in it, because that's all you have. That's very, very dangerous. That's how fires start in these vehicles. If you have a 10 amp fuse that's blowing all the time, put a 7.5 in it. If you have a 15 that's blowing all the time and you don't have any 15s, put a 10 in it. Always go lower, but never go higher. You're just asking for serious issues, possibly even death, and especially if you have anybody in your vehicle, like your child, that can't get out. And then you stick a big fuse in there, and all of a sudden your car or truck bursts into flames and you can't get your child out. Please don't do that, and don't take advice from anybody that would even recommend that you do that. Everybody that I called, no one wanted to help me. I just didn't know what to do. I was on a mission to pick up somebody to take them home, and I couldn't get to them. As I was coming back from the truck stop back to the truck, I had been talking to that one garage that told me to put a bigger fuse in it. And at that point, I did not have a clue what I was going to do. I completely felt lost. I had no money. Several of the garages told me that if I could get it to them, that they would be able to get to it next week, and it might take 3 or 4 days to chase down a short problem. I can't afford that. For goodness sake, I would have to get a motel or sleep in the woods for a week. I can't do that. I've got to find a way to get going. So when I get back to the truck, I decide one more time to crawl underneath the truck in the gravel and the dirt and look again. Maybe I missed something. And I unplugged the transmission cable. I like troubleshooting, so let's do this. So I pulled the plug on the transmission, and then I got out from underneath the truck. I lifted the hood, and I put a new 7.5 again, so I didn't waste any more of my 15s, and it blew. It instantly blew. So I was like, no, that wasn't it. This was just driving me nuts what to do. I mean, I've already been through this for 3 weeks, and now it's gotten to the extreme. And now I've left stranded. And I'm like, God, why are you doing this to me? But God does things for us that we may look at being bad, but no. The next day is when you're going to see that if that hadn't happened, something much worse would have, or vice versa. Everything happens for a reason. I truly, truly believe that. When that one blew, I got back underneath the truck and plugged the transmission back in, and I was like, well, maybe it was just the connection. And unplugging it, putting it back in, maybe that fixed it. So I got back up, I took another 7.5 amp, blew right away. I absolutely did not know what to do at that point. I closed the hood, I went and I got back in the truck, and I just sat there. And I just was shaking my head, and I just did not know what to do. There was nobody that I could call. Everybody that I knew was 3 hours away. God tapped me on the shoulder. He said, Stephen, remember what I showed you yesterday? I know that's what he was saying, because right at that instant, when I was sitting there, not knowing what to do, suddenly I remembered watching a video the night before. And that video was about a guy that was showing how to test a starter with it still in the vehicle. You didn't have to take it out of the vehicle. The reason I'm saying that is because when that fuse is blown, the truck won't start at all. Unless you can get the engine to turn over, you're dead. If I hadn't have watched that video, which I truly believe in my heart and soul that God sent me to that video. He knew the next day that I was going to need that knowledge because I was going to be alone. I just thought, wow, this is crazy. Okay, you know what? I wonder if this will work. So I said to myself, what do I have to lose? Got out of the truck, and right now, I'm going to show you what I did. And I'm just so hoping that somebody watching this ends up in a situation where this could save your life or your family's life or get you out of your uncomfortable situation and you can't get your vehicle started. I just hope that someone is going to be helped by this. So let's take you to the truck right now and show you the trick. I want to try to bring you over here and get you closer. The dead short, it finally stopped when I was on my way home at 38 miles an hour for 3 hours the other day, and I guess it broke loose. Then I was able to put a fuse in it. So I took the fuse out for this to show you how this works. So that fuse right there, number 37, it's a 15 amp fuse, and as you can see, it's not in there. So I can get you off the stand here and take you inside the truck and show you that when that fuse is blown, let's see if you can see that. The gear wrench icon is on. The traction control light's on. Now I'm going to try to start it, and you'll see it does nothing. Like the battery is not even in it. So whenever you run into that situation with that fuse, or I'm assuming any fuse that has to do with the TCM, transmission control module, probably won't allow you to start your vehicle. But this is a way to be able to possibly get your vehicle started. Okay, here's what you do. Take your key and turn the ignition on. Okay, now what you're going to do, all right, let me see if I can zoom in here so you can see. Okay, now right here is the starter relay. And I think it's 54, the relay, 54 relay. But anyway, it's the starter relay is what it is. And that's what you want to remove. I don't have a tool yet. It's on the way. These relays are hard to get out. Okay. Now we can get... Okay. And then just put this one back in. Now this, like I said, this is a starter relay. So what we're going to do is, let me show you. There's a diagram on these relays, if it'll focus. There you go. See that little wiper? It's look for 30 and 87 on this side. This here, if it'll focus, is 30, and this one up here is 87. So what you do is you go back to where this plugs in, and then look at these two connections down inside of here. I'm going to take needle nose pliers, or you can use a wire, and we are going to short this wire here and this wire here together. That will cause the starter to engage and turn the engine over. And since the ignition is on, it should start your vehicle. So let's try it. Okay, put your fuse back in, or relay I mean. Still have gear wrench icon and the traction control light is still on, and that is because the fuse is still out. I've simulated the blown fuse by not having one in there. All right, yeah, I just wanted to show you that. So if you yourself find yourself in a situation like this, it could be tomorrow, it could be next week. Maybe it happened to you last week. If you would have known this, you could have gotten out of a situation. You can pass this information now on to a friend, or now you have it for future reference. But I'm just hoping that that little bit of information can help somebody to get out of a otherwise precarious or even scary situation and be enough to get you home.